The warmest of greetings to you, and welcome to Happily Ever Teaching. This is the podcast to help you enthrall your learners in every subject under the sun using the best teaching method known to science, storytelling. To do this, we feature special guest educators who are passionately keen for your children to become amazing and successful human beings. I am storyteller Chip Cahoon, and with me today is...
Hi, I'm Rob. I teach a Key Stage 2 class just outside Milton Keynes, and I've worked throughout all the Key Stages.
Hi, I'm Helen. I also teach just outside Milton Keynes, and I'm currently teaching reception in Year 1.
And today we are exploring what maths we can teach, with a witty folktale found all around the world, adapted by us to be set in medieval England. You can listen to the story by downloading our sister podcast, Fables and Fairy Tales, or search our website, epictales.co.uk, for The Dragon's Heart. There you'll find a video of me telling the story that you can share with your children. And if you sign up as an Epic Educator, you'll also get a copy as an ebook or paperback illustrated by the magnificent Maria Coelho, as well as the full audiobook for you to download at any time. There are even some tips for telling the story yourself, and a whole heap of resources to go with the lesson ideas we're about to discuss, including any extra lesson ideas that we don't have time to fit into this podcast. Right now, though, let's continue our discussion with Helen, Rob, Full of Dread, and the U-Dragon. And we're, as you kind of heard at the end of yesterday, we're exploring and picking out some maths. What did you actually find at the end of your mathematical quests yesterday, folks?
So the activity that I have come up with for this is about adding weight or adding mass, because as Full of Dread goes through all the different parts of the forest, he picks up extra mud and sand and squelchiness, which on top of his armour is going to weigh quite a lot by the
Quite
end.
heavy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, mud around his boots.
Yes.
You know, when you go for a walk in a muddy field and you just collect mud around boots, that's what I'm picturing here.
Yeah.
And the sand that gets stuck to you after going through water. Yeah.
So how much would he weigh at the end? That would be my question that I would ask. And depending on the age of your Key Stage 2 children would depend on how many variables or givens you give them. So we know that he went through 5 kilograms of sand, for example. You might say to your younger children, but older up, you might say, okay, how much sand do you think he would have gone through? And get them to explore the problem a bit more themselves. And then you could even tie it into, well, how much weight can a branch of a tree hold? I wouldn't recommend pulling branches off live trees or throwing children up there.
I was going to say, put how many children you fit on a branch.
Yeah.
Health and safety alert.
Make sure it's not. It's a tree that's got lots of life in it still, and that they've got a rope attached around them as well. But so you could explore solving problems using weight, and that would allow you to look at adding different quantities of weights. You could say for part of it, it's 5 kilograms of sand, and then you could say, and by the time he's walked through the river, he's got 6,000 grams of mud on his shoe. So you change the units of measurements. They've got to look at converting between the two. Yeah, I think you could get a really engaging lesson out of that.
Yeah. How thick must the sand have caked his boots if it's weighing 5 kilos? Whoa.
It was a tough journey for him.
Yeah.
How about for ages 4 to 7, Helen?
I am going to focus all the maths on bags of nuts. At the end of the story, Sir Full of Dread is taking bags of nuts to his friend the dragon. And there's so much maths you can get out of this. In an ideal world, you will have some form of nut or seed, nut-type seed from a tree to use. But that depends on the time of year. Or you can just use...
And also the allergies in your class, I presume.
Yes, of course. Always have to be aware of those. Or you can use something that represents the nuts. But they can be used for... counting, for multiplication, for sharing out equally, for addition, and it's just absolutely loads of maths you can get out of that. So sharing nuts equally between bags, finding out how many nuts there are if there are 10 nuts in a bag and there are 5 bags, adding up how many nuts there are altogether if there's different amounts of nuts in each bag. Lots and lots of maths from bags of nuts. So my other slight related activity is to do with estimation. So early on, from the reception early learning goals, the children are being asked to learn how to begin to accurately estimate a number of objects, which children don't. I find there's some children that don't like to do this because they don't like the possibility they might be wrong. They want the right answer. They want the absolutely right answer. So I thought you could have some kind of transparent bag or pot with nuts in. Again, if you can use conkers or something, that would be great. And use it throughout a week or two while you're using the story in your class. So have it at a certain place in your class that it's sealed. The children can't get the objects out, but they write down each day their estimation for how many are in there. And then at the end of each day, you count together and see whose was the closest estimate. Because I find estimation is very much a skill that just kind of improves with time. You teach children how to do it in a lesson. What is estimation? But their actual ability to estimate will only improve with time. I'm still not very good at it. So to do that over a couple of weeks, have it set up in your class would be a good way to practice that skill.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, it's something that I've done in my work as a tutor for alternative provision. I've also done that as a sort of quick fire multiple choice activity where I'll present something and I'll present 3 different answers. There'll be maybe like 10 of these. And the challenge will be not just to get as many as close as possible, but to also finish as fast as possible. So it's kind of like a race to get to the end of all 10 questions. So you want to be making sure that you are making as accurate an estimation as possible, but also as quickly as possible. And some of them might be, as you say, how many of something is inside this. Others might be, very complex calculations. So maybe, 17 times 122. But the idea is not to find the right answer. It's to find the closest answer. And just being able to whiz through those sorts of things quickly, I find it really helps young learners to get into the habit of checking their work and knowing when their work needs to be checked. Because if you do a calculation like 17 times 122, I do appreciate that's not something you'd have to do for ages 4 to 7 normally.
Hopefully not. I really don't want to go into big numbers like that.
No, but if you start to get into the habit of even if it's something like 17 plus 122, if you start to get into the habit of thinking, okay, well, that's more or less 120 plus 20, but the answer that you have just worked out with your column addition is something like 1,240 or something like that, then by sight that you've made an error somewhere.
Yeah.
So it just helps train the brain to know when maybe you need to look at it again.
I do like that idea of adding the speed into it, Chip. I think make it into a bit of a race stops the children from taking the time to work it out or count everything exactly. It ensures that they are estimating and not counting.
2074.
Did you do that in your head?
I did, yeah.
Well done.
This is why Rob's the Key Stage 2 teacher and I'm not.
And I'm the storyteller. That's sadly all we have time for in this episode, folks. If you'd like to talk to us about anything you've heard in this podcast, or if there's a subject you're soon to teach that you'd like us to cover, you can find us on social media using @TeachHappily, or leave us a review using your favourite podcast app. Please also share this podcast with your colleagues and help us start a story-led revolution in classrooms around the world, so children everywhere can learn in a way that's effective, memorable, and enjoyable all at the same time. Tomorrow, Sir Fulladred and the U-Dragon will help us teach science. But right now, it only remains for us to say cheerio, and we hope to hear your story soon. So, cheerio! And we hope to hear your story soon.